Imagine waking up one day and realizing that, despite being respected, loved, and even admired by many women, they never truly desired you. Not intensely, not hungry, not with that silent urgency that makes them seek you out in the wee hours of the morning, look at you as if you were the only man alive, or sigh at the mere thought of your scent. You're seen as good, but not irresistible. The one they say would make a great father, but never the man they want to grab behind a door. And here's the first uncomfortable truth. What they admire in you is rarely what makes them want you. You can be everything society says a man should be, kind, available, trustworthy, loyal, and still not arouse desire in any woman. Because desire doesn't follow social rules. It ignores logic, convention, and good intentions. It's wild, instinctive, primal. We live in a culture that teaches men to seek female approval, as if that in itself were attractive. You learn to listen, to support, to yield, to be the safe man. But no one taught you to be the man who makes her tremble inside with just a look. And herein lies the problem. By trying to become what they say they want, you've become invisible to what they truly desire. What arouses arousal isn't predictable. What generates obsession isn't sweetness, it's tension. Female desire is born from contrast, between security and mystery, between affection and provocation, between what she knows about you and what she's still trying to decipher. Most men lose themselves because they try to give everything: attention, words, stories, certainties. But the truth is, the space you leave is more powerful than anything you offer. A vacuum creates fascination. The unsaid breeds imagination. And imagination is the fuel of female desire. Nietzsche said that happiness is the feeling that power grows, that resistance has been overcome. But what if I told you that, for women, desire is also born there? In emotional tension, in doubt, uncertainty about what will happen when she's alone with you. A predictable man is comfortable. A man who creates controlled emotional discomfort is addictive, because he takes her out of her mental rut. He makes her feel. Most of the interactions she experiences are lukewarm, safe, automatic. So when she finds someone who knows how to play with the unpredictable without losing control, that man sticks in her psyche. Desire begins in the mind, moves through the body, and settles in memory. And sexual memory is stronger than any logical argument. Women desire the man they can't forget, not the one who's always been available. This video isn't about cheap seduction tricks. It's not about manipulation or performance. It's about decoding female desire with surgical precision and building a sexual presence that transcends appearance, status, or technique. Most men try to win women over through appearance or effort. The few who master the game do so with energy, poise, and intention. Seduction isn't a game of words, it's a game of presence. Have you ever wondered why certain men, even if they aren't physically impressive, have women throwing themselves at their feet? Because they understand that sexuality begins long before touch. It begins in the way you occupy a room, in the way you look, the way you speak, the way you withdraw. The man who dominates the realm of desire doesn't need to force anything. He just needs to be there. Because when you master your energy, your sexuality doesn't need to be spoken. It's felt. Prepare to stop being the right guy and start being the man she can't get out of her head. The journey you're about to embark on will reshape your way of being around women. And more than that, it will reclaim a masculinity that has been domesticated by social norms, but which has never stopped pulsing deep within your soul. Female desire isn't dead. It's just waiting for the right man to awaken it. And that man can, and should, be you. But to do so, you'll need to abandon everything you've been taught about how to be desired. You'll have to kill the nice guy, the predictable man, the emotionally secure but sexually dull man. And he will need to be reborn as someone who understands the power of tension, presence, and duality. She says you're incredible, that she's never met anyone so kind, that she feels safe with you. And yet, while you sleep with your phone next to you, waiting for a message from her, she's fantasizing about someone else. Maybe someone she barely knows. Maybe someone who never promised anything but made her feel everything. And what do? You insist. You show more affection, more presence, more understanding. You think that if she realizes how good you are, she'll finally want you. But the truth is crueler. The more good you try to be, the more invisible you become. This is the invisible mistake. The mistake millions of men make every day without realizing they're digging their own sexual grave. The mistake of confusing acceptance with attraction, of thinking affection generates arousal, of imagining that being predictable will make her desire you. It won't. And do you know why? Because female desire isn't fueled by logic, but by tension, by emotion, by controlled instability. And when you give it all at once, you remove what keeps her mind alight. Mystery, doubt, arousal. The philosopher Ortega Gasset said, the combination of fascination and surrender is essential to love. But he wasn't talking about romantic love, he was talking about the experience that throws us off balance, that drags us out of our heads and makes us lose control. And this kind of love, the one that smells of obsession, of skin, of need, is not born of predictability. It's born of dissonance, of contradiction, of emotional discomfort that demands an urgent response. And you, by showing yourself to be always present, reliable, and completely predictable, nullify this dissonance. You're too good to be exciting. Modern culture reinforces this error every day. It says, be understanding, be vulnerable, talk about your feelings. But what it doesn't tell you is that this only works if you're already sexually magnetic to her. If you're not, your vulnerability comes across as needy. Your understanding seems weak, and the emotional conversation becomes a therapy session, not a dance of seduction. That's where the paradox comes in. You do everything right, but the result is wrong. You're the guy she admires, not the one she fantasizes about. You're emotionally present, but sexually absent. The seduction manual isn't the same as social education. While one teaches how to connect, the other teaches how to provoke. While one demands empathy, the other demands tension. And if you don't understand the difference, you play the seduction game with the rules of affection, and you lose. Because she's not just looking for someone to talk to. She's looking for someone who makes her feel desire, feel excitement, feel emotional insecurity in doses that keep her interested but never in danger. That's the key. She needs to feel safe and stimulated, cared for and challenged, understood and provoked. This contradiction is ancient. Cleopatra didn't seduce Caesar and Mark Antony by being sweet. She seduced them with intelligence, theatricality, and power. Marilyn Monroe wasn't just sensual, she was enigmatic. You couldn't tell if she was innocent or deadly, and that captivated, because the human mind is attracted to what it can't fully decipher. And when you give yourself completely at once, you eliminate any possibility of discovery. You become obvious. And the obvious is never erotic. It's comfortable, but not magnetic. It's safe, but not addictive. Robert Greene puts it precisely. Seducers don't reveal everything. They leave room for the imagination. And that's where most men fail. They're in a hurry. They're in a hurry to show they're different. They're in a hurry to conquer. They're in a hurry to be accepted. But haste kills the game, because desire is a construct. It's a narrative. And every good narrative needs tension, twists, and a climax. If you give away the ending on the first page, there's no point in reading any further. And that's exactly what you do when you try to accelerate connection without creating tension. You turn a potential erotic romance into a polite, sexually sterile friendship. There's also the problem of validation. Many men condition their value on a woman's response. If she responds, they feel confident. If she ignores them, they collapse. And this oscillation reveals something fatal. You have no inner control. You have no center. And a woman will never be attracted to someone who needs her to feel like a man. True masculinity, the kind that provokes desire, is that which is solid even in the face of rejection. That doesn't need to beg for attention because it's full of purpose, focus, and self-intention. The man who attracts is the one who emits an energy of completeness, not neediness. Neil Strauss in The Game tells how many men try to seduce by being what they think women want. But masters of seduction don't please. They shape reality. They create a magnetic field around themselves. They don't ask to be desired. They make themselves desirable. And how do they do it? With energy, with presence, with emotional mastery. They know that female desire is activated by unconscious signals, posture, voice, gaze, silence, and that talking too much, exposing too much, and explaining too much destroys the mystery. And without mystery, there is no fascination. Without fascination, there is no arousal. So you need to stop trying to convince her with words and start provoking reactions with behavior. You need to master the art of silence, of the touch that doesn't ask but invites, of the gaze that doesn't implore but asserts. And above all, you need to learn to withdraw your presence at the right moment, because strategic absence is an aphrodisiac. When you're always available, she doesn't miss you. But when you disappear, when she feels the emptiness of your absence, something inside her stirs. And it's this internal movement that generates obsession. Desire isn't born from excessive presence, but from the absence that leaves its mark. You also need to understand that being kind, gentle, and respectful isn't a problem. The problem is when this comes without tension, without contrast, without sexual energy. A woman wants a man who knows how to be sweet, but also brutal in bed, who knows how to listen to her, but also knows how to dominate her emotionally, who protects her, but also instigates her. This complexity is what makes a man unforgettable. The one-dimensional man, always predictable, always available, is easily dismissed. He's functional, but not memorable. And you don't want to be functional. You want to be etched in her memory. So, abandon the role of the perfect guy and start building the archetype of the fascinating man. The one who says less but causes more. Who disappears but when he appears, takes everything. Who says little but touches deeply. This transition isn't about manipulation. It's about rediscovering your most powerful masculinity, the ability to generate tension. Not fear, not disrespect, but a tension that takes her out of automatic mode and makes her want to understand more. Explore more. Have more of you. Female desire is mental, and you only enter her body after you have mastered her mind. Ultimately, you have to choose. Be the guy she raves about to her friends, or be the guy she remembers alone when no one's looking, with her legs parted and her breathing quickened. The first gets applause, the second gets desire. And you can even choose to continue being good. But understand that kindness without magnetism turns into boredom. And no one fantasizes about boredom. She may even love the predictable man, but she'll only become addicted to the one who makes her feel alive. And that man, my friend, is in no rush to please. He has the patience to provoke, and he knows exactly when to disappear, just to make her search for him even more eagerly. Have you ever seen an obsessed woman? I'm not talking about affection, admiration, or respect. I'm talking about irrational excitement, that silent obsession that begins with a distant gaze, a recurring thought, a solitary late-night fantasy. An obsessed woman doesn't talk about you with her friends. She hides you from them. She thinks about you when she's with someone else. And the most brutal part? This obsession rarely has anything to do with beauty, money, or status. It has to do with something much more dangerous, the way you install yourself in her mind. But here's the paradox that confuses almost all men. They think female obsession stems from the accumulation of presence, that the more you're around, the more messages you send, the more attention she'll give you. False. Obsession isn't born from excess, it's born from lack, from emotional vacuum, from the calculated imbalance between presence and absence, between attention and silence. She doesn't fall in love when you treat her like a princess. She becomes addicted when you become an emotional enigma, when she feels she needs to decipher you before someone else does. The female brain responds to desire like an emotional puzzle. And this is where the first key to this formula comes in. Strategic unpredictability. Neuroscience studies show that the human brain releases more dopamine, the pleasure neurotransmitter, when faced with uncertain rewards than with guaranteed ones. In other words, when she doesn't know what to expect from you, when your gestures and responses vary between warmth and distance, between attention and distraction, her brain enters a state of constant arousal. It's like a game that never ends, and desire loves what has no end. You may have the face of a Greek god, but if she deciphers you in 2 encounters, the fascination dies. Now, if every time she thinks she's figured you out, you reveal a new layer, a new silence, a new reaction, then yes, she starts to go crazy. The man who generates obsession is the one who dances between warm presence and enigmatic disappearance. He delivers intensity, but never predictability. He disappears when she most expects it, and reappears when she's already given up. Not to play games, but because he understands that attraction needs space to grow, and space only exists in absence. Herein lies the second key to obsession: sexual energy independent of approval. When your confidence depends on her response, you betray weakness. But when you enter a room carrying a solid masculine energy without needing her gaze to feel validated, you immediately trigger signals of high unconscious value. This is anchored in biology. Women are attracted to men who convey physical and emotional security, and this security isn't found in physical strength, but in the absence of internal doubt. When you speak without hesitation, when your posture dominates the room, when your gaze holds tension, her body responds, even before she rationally realizes it. Obsession begins in the body, but remains in the mind. And to keep her mind spinning around you, you need to understand the third key: controlled emotional instability. It's the principle of the emotional roller coaster. Intense emotion, then calm. Approach, then retreat. A provocation, followed by silence. A subtle compliment, followed by calculated coldness. This back and forth creates a psychological effect called emotional intermittency. The same one that addicts, casinos, social media, and men who know how to play with feelings in a controlled way. She feels something strong, then feels its absence, then feels it again. And the more she feels and loses, the more she wants. But be careful, this is not manipulation. This is emotional dominance. The manipulator acts out of fear. The strategist acts out of conscience. You create tension not to hurt, but to provoke desire. You play with fire but never burn. You disappear but never abandon. You provoke but never humiliate. And it is precisely this emotional sophistication that differentiates the magnetic seducer from the common scoundrel. A woman surrenders to the man who can unbalance her emotionally without making her feel insecure as a woman. She needs to feel challenged, but never devalued. Tension, not trauma. Robert Greene calls this creating need through distance. He says that masters of seduction are those who can be intense and absent at the same time, who leave traces, not promises, who light a fire but don't offer water, and when she feels thirsty, it's too late. You're already installed in her mind. But here comes one of the most powerful techniques: the use of sexual imagery. While men try to go straight to the physical, true seducers know that the female mind responds first to what she imagines, before what she feels in her body. Therefore, their language needs to operate on two levels: the obvious and the suggestive. An ambiguous comment, a look that says what your mouth can't. A sentence with a double meaning that can be read as innocent or absolutely erotic. This is the game of subtext. You don't talk about sex. You invite her mind to imagine sex with you. And when she starts imagining, you've already won. Because the body obeys what the mind repeats. The woman who fantasized about you 3 times already desires you, even if she never admits it. And hidden desire is always the most dangerous, because it grows in the dark. And in the dark, her imagination transforms you into something greater than you are. And that, my friend, is obsession. But obsession only sustains itself if you master the fourth key: true scarcity. And that means this: you can't always be available. Period. Men who are always online, who respond too quickly, who offer themselves full-time, are disposable. Her brain needs to feel that your attention is rare, that being with you is a privilege, not a routine. This creates a sense of merit. And everything that needs to be conquered is more valued. If you're easy, you're forgotten. If you're selective, you're coveted. Scarcity is the invisible scent of a desired man. Now we come to the most refined key: the impression of social abundance. She needs to feel, even if subtly, that other women desire you. This isn't about flaunting your achievements. It's about naturally conveying that you're comfortable in the feminine world, that you have friends, that you know how to deal with women, that you're desired even without effort. This activates one of the deepest instincts of desire: silent competition. She doesn't just want a good man. She wants the man other women also desire, but who chose her. This validates her. This excites her. This captivates her. And to maintain this web of attraction, you need to develop something few master: non-verbal sexual presence. Your body must communicate what you feel before you even speak. Your gestures must have intention. Your gaze must hold tension. Your touch must be firm and progressive. And above all, you need to learn to occupy space. A man who shrinks is seen as insecure. A man who expands without invading is perceived as dominant. Energetic dominance, not physical. It's as if your body is saying, "I am here, I am this, and you will feel me." This presence must be reinforced with the right tone of voice. And here's a technical detail. Women are more attracted to deep, slow, and articulate voices. Not because they sound masculine, but because they convey inner authority. When you speak slowly, with intention, you control the pace of the conversation. You create pauses, and the pause is erotic. The pause leaves room for imagination, for doubt, for impact. The man who speaks quickly wants to be accepted. The man who speaks slowly has already been accepted by himself. And that's the kind of self-confidence that captivates. And if you think this is all theoretical, understand, we're talking about brain biochemistry. Every time you provoke emotional and sexual tension in a woman, you activate her brain's reward centers. Dopamine spikes, cortisol, the pleasurable stress hormone, activates, oxytocin, the bonding hormone, mixes, and this hormonal cocktail turns you into a drug. Yes, you become addicted. Because every time you disappear, she feels withdrawal. Every time you return, she feels relief. And what causes relief is addictive. Therefore, she begins to adapt to your rhythm, to wait for your attention, to look for signs, to dream of your next appearance. This is why you need to master a woman's emotional timing. She doesn't respond at your pace. She responds at the pace of the mental arousal you provoke. The average man tries to speed up the process. He forces conversations, rushes encounters, and pressures touch. The strategic man understands that every second of waiting, if charged with tension and intention, is worth more than 10 touches without context. He knows that anticipation is more powerful than the act. That suggestion is worth more than nudity. That silence, well placed, is more provocative than any compliment. This man doesn't play with words. He plays with emotions. And in the end, when she lies down and closes her eyes, she won't remember the words you said. She'll remember how she felt around you. The absence that hurt, the touch that burned, the gaze that penetrated her before the kiss. And that's what she'll repeat, in her body, in her mind, in her memory. And this cycle is what we call obsession, presence. This is the ultimate weapon, the invisible detail that separates ordinary men from the men who linger in a woman's mind and body for years. But don't confuse presence with being physically present. It's not about proximity, it's about impact. About how your energy alters the environment, about how your simple entry into a space silences other voices. The man who masters the art of presence doesn't need to say anything. His language is charged silence. His touch is memory. His breath, a command. He doesn't try to take up space. He is the space. And when a woman feels this, she surrenders without knowing why. But to reach this level, the illusion of performance must be shattered. Many men lose themselves trying to appear confident, interesting, sensual. The problem? Performance requires effort, and effort betrays insecurity. True presence arises from inner comfort, from a man who is so aligned with who he is that he doesn't need to prove anything. He can be silent for minutes and still be the center of gravity in the room. This is because presence emanates from what you feel, not what you say. And if you're anxious, disconnected, or trying to please, she'll sense it. She'll detect the dissonance. She'll identify the emptiness behind the mask. Eastern philosophy calls this the state of being. A state in which the individual isn't trying, they just are. And this being is irresistible, because in the modern world, everyone is constantly trying to appear successful, interesting, important, and the man who simply is stands out like a beacon in a sea of noise. The woman senses he doesn't need to prove anything, and this disarms her, because finally she's found someone whose presence is effortless, someone who doesn't depend on her for validation, someone who invites her into a stable and deeply masculine internal space. But how do you build this presence? It starts with mindfulness. Presence isn't just about emitting energy, it's also about absorbing. It's about listening with your eyes, feeling with your body. When you're with her, you're completely there. No cell phone, no anxiety, no thinking about what you're going to say next. You listen, observe, respond with your body. Your gaze remains steady. Your breathing matches hers. You enter the emotional rhythm of the conversation like a conductor feeling every note before conducting the orchestra. And suddenly she feels seen, felt, welcomed. And this feeling is rare, intense, almost religious. Presence is also built in how you handle silence. Insecure men fill the silence with words. Magnetic men let silence speak for them. Because they know that it is in silence that desire sets in, that tension builds, that her imagination begins to work. Don't say everything. Don't over-explain. Leave spaces, pauses, breathe, create atmosphere. A woman responds to what she feels, not what she understands, and she feels more when you say less with more intensity. Presence is emotional economy. It's knowing that the impact isn't in the volume, but in the vibration you transmit. Another pillar of presence is the physical ritual. The way you move, the way you touch, the way you occupy the space. Men who possess presence move with controlled slowness. Every gesture is intentional. Nothing is random. The touch begins lightly, firmly, but always testing a response. The posture is erect but relaxed. The voice is deep, unhurried. The eyes speak before the mouth. You don't invade, you attract. And when you get closer, it's as if the air changes density. She feels it. She can't explain it, but she feels it. And that's what stays with her. Her body will forget your words, but she won't forget how she felt when you touched her that way. When she heard you speak slowly, looking directly at her, as if the world around her didn't exist. True presence also requires clear emotional boundaries. The man who accepts everything, understands everything, tolerates everything, lacks presence. He is absorbed by the other. The present man imposes limits with silent firmness. He doesn't need to shout. His no is an act of internal authority. And this, for a woman, is highly sexual, because she feels she's in front of someone who won't be molded by her needs, someone who won't give in just to please. And this silent firmness activates a primal instinct, respect. And respect, when mixed with excitement, transforms into continuous desire. But the pinnacle of presence happens when you combine all these elements with a single skill: advanced emotional reading. You sense what she's feeling before she even says it. You notice the subtle discomfort, the unconscious gesture, the micro-expression, and you act. Without speaking, without accusing, you adjust the tone, you change the distance, you change the pace. She feels you see what others don't, that you see what she herself hides. And this creates a rare connection, a feeling of being emotionally naked. And a woman who feels this way gives herself without reservation, because she no longer needs to hide anything. This surrender only happens because you create an environment of magnetic safety, a space where she can be vulnerable without fear of judgment, where she can express her darkest desires without losing control. And this, for the female mind, is like oxygen. It's liberating. It's addictive. She becomes addicted to you not because you speak beautifully, but because your presence allows her to be more herself. And that is rare. It's precious. It's dangerous. The end of this journey is inevitable. You won't just be remembered. You will be marked. Not just desired, but compared. With each new man she meets, something will be missing. A detail, a vibration, a firm gaze, a charged silence. And that's when you become permanent. Not in her life, but in her sensory memory. You become a reference, a yardstick. And any comparison will be unfair to others, because no one else will be you. In the end, the art of presence isn't about how she feels about you. It's about how she feels about herself when she's with you. And if you can make her feel more alive, more womanly, more intense, more free, then she will seek you out with her body, her mind, her soul, and she will desire you silently. Every day. You've made it this far, which means something inside you has already begun to awaken. You've realized that the game isn't about being nice, predictable, or accepted. It's about activating the deep triggers of desire. And if this video only gave you a glimpse, imagine what will happen when you dive into the full battlefield. What I've shared here is just the surface, the most powerful strategies, the most obscure triggers, the mental mechanisms that truly make a woman desire you in 60 seconds. All of this is in the complete audiobook of the Forbidden Manual. And be warned, this material isn't for everyone. It was created for men who are ready to break out of the ordinary and become absolutely unforgettable. Do you want to stop being the nice guy she forgets the next day? And become the man she can't get out of her head, off her body, off her skin? Then click the link now. The Forbidden Manual, How to Trigger Desire in 60 Seconds. The Forbidden Manual. The code most men will never have the courage to crack. But if you've made it this far, perhaps you're exactly the kind of man born to master this game.